Welcome, everybody. My name is Ida Prahat. Welcome to the Cosmic Brew. Today I have a special guest, H Lux. Welcome, Phoenix. I'm excited. We finally were able to put this together and have you come on. How are you today?
Doing really well. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So I'm going to just first, I'm going to act, well, the first 30 minutes, you'll share information about yourself and your credentials, whatever it is you feel comfortable sharing. And then we'll go into an open discussion after the first or the 30-minute mark. And you have quite a unique background. I'm going to ask you maybe can you describe how growing up in a family of CIA operatives and Ivy League MDs influenced your development as an intergenerational psychic?
Sure. So as far as being an intergenerational psychic, that's something that does run in my family. However, I think the only people that are consciously aware of it are the CIA operatives, whereas it's the paternal side of my line. So my dad also has those abilities, but I don't think that he's like consciously aware that that he has them the same way that my relatives that worked for the CIA are. My CIA relatives, my aunt used to read the president's book. So she worked directly with George Bush on like a daily basis. She's the one that handled putting together the president's book. And she also received training in remote viewing, psychic ability, all of that sort of thing with the CIA. And obviously this isn't something that she can go into great detail with me about. But I did live with her for a while and I couldn't keep anything to myself or private because she would be able to like remote view my text messages and my thoughts. So as far as she would know if I was hearing something that I wasn't supposed to hear, or if I was about to sneak out and do something that I wasn't supposed to do. And I'm really not sure how it didn't dawn on me from the get-go that that was what was happening. But I guess I knew that I had psychic abilities at the time, but I hadn't put together that like the government, the CIA, or any of that had anything to do with that whatsoever, like the third eye or remote viewing or unique abilities such as that. So I just thought she had like a really good intuition for a long time, or some sort of access to my phone that I didn't know about. And then it took me a while to put the pieces together. And as far as my dad goes, he's pretty similar. He would just know that he has an amazing intuition that's allowed him to get really far in his career. And of course, the Harvard thing. So certain bloodlines that have those psychic abilities are the ones that kind of get funneled into those Ivy League universities. And the way that that happens, I think it's kind of complicated. Like it's partially remote influencing and partially people get funneled in intentionally. And I believe it was more like a remote influencing situation with my folks. Is there anything else that you wanted to know?
Well, I'm just curious. Do you feel that you were used in being used for your psychic abilities, your intuitive abilities as a child? Do you think that you were used in?
So yes, definitely. I was born on a military base, and my parents were in the Air Force while they were paying for their MDs. So they owed the military some of their time. So when they first became doctors, they were working for the Air Force. And I actually believe that my dad was in the projects too, just because of some of like the dreams that he used to tell me about and things like that. And then my mom has like a 160 IQ, and I believe they did some stuff with her too. I think my mom was chipped. But when I was like about 6 months old, I was in my crib, and I didn't know what they were at the time, but they were like these men that were in robes wearing masks. But I had like no point of reference for what they were. They were just very tall. They were wearing masks and black robes, and they would come into my room. They would come around my bed, and they would play me very strange cartoons, and they would like chant over me, and then they would kind of like ritualistically abuse me. And I remember my first memory of this was when I was 6 months old, because I would make my dad sleep next to the crib with me. I think they were coming in, like I said, like through a portal, and they would just do this like every single night. And my dad used to remind me of how I would cry every night when he left the room, and he had to sit next to my crib and watch me fall asleep, because otherwise I couldn't do it, because I was too young to differentiate reality from dreams, and just to tell what was going on. And I used to think that this was just a bad dream that I had like repetitively, and that was my first memory. But then I realized, no, that was actually happening as I kind of came more into my awakening. So yes, that was happening. And so I believe that was some sort of MK Ultra, which is with the strange cartoons, the ritualistic abuse. And this probably happened for about a year. And then when I was about 3 or 4 years old, these tall beings that were not entirely human, like came around my bed and they told me that it was time to go. And it was just very strange. I was like, it's time to go. Like, where are we going? Where are my parents? And then they told me that my parents had already given them the okay and that it was time to go. And I was like, okay, but where are we going? And they're like, well, we'll show you. You just need to get up and go. So I just remember there were these two tall alien-like beings that took me. And then I remember like getting on this thing that was kind of like a train, but it wasn't quite a train. And they portaled me to this place that kind of looks like a courthouse. And it was this, my sisters are adopted. And like, there was a judge that helped my parents during the adoption process. And it was the same judge I remember that I met that night when I was portaled to this strange place. And all I remember is being asked to do something for the United States of America. And then this sounds so strange, but I remember like the judge and like some other beings like bonking me on the head or something and knocking me out. And then I was just taken to do whatever it was that I did. And I asked my parents about it the next day. And my mom just kind of looked at me strange because I was like, I was taken someplace and they said that you were already waiting, but I don't remember seeing you there or like what that was. Do you remember that? And my mom, she said, are you sure that wasn't a dream? Like she kind of looked at me strangely, like I was kind of like going crazy or imagining things or just being like a silly child. And so I guess I never placed that memory or just never really figured out exactly what happened. But in retrospect, I've been having more and more flashbacks. So I was using the projects and they wiped my memory afterwards. And that's what I remember about that occurrence.
Well, all of that is very fascinating, Phoenix.
Thank you. I actually ran into that judge again. And then like right as my sister was being adopted, and because he pulled me aside afterwards and he was like, do you know me? And like, it's just like a strange question.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
You were adopted? Is that
I was not adopted. No, I'm the only biological child. My sisters were adopted. My sisters don't have any psychic abilities. They're as normal as you come. Nothing like that. They're very average, straight-laced. They're from China, and they're just
neat. Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
growing up with having siblings that are from another country and another culture, and completely different from yourself.
Sure. I mean, they were adopted very young, so they're pretty much your average American citizens at this point. They don't speak Chinese. They don't really have any ties to that culture. They have some aesthetic preferences that are kind of, more Asian, but they themselves are pretty.
So are you close to them?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So I was used, and then the judge pulled me aside when we were adopting my sister, and he asked me if I knew him. And I said, no, I don't know you. And he's like, are you sure you never met me? And then I kind of like squinted. I'm like, yeah, maybe I do know you. And he's like, no, we've never met. And that was like a strange memory that I had. So I actually heard that the court system and lawyers and judges and the like are more the Masonic element. And then the CIA intelligence, that's more like the Illuminati. I heard that from somebody recently, and that makes sense to me. So I'm pretty sure that judge was a Freemason and involved in some way, shape, or form with those projects that I was involved in.
Well, we definitely know that, most of the courts in political arena, these guys are definitely have chosen to be a part of these, if you want to call secret societies and covert nonsense that's going on with the government. I mean, it's part of their, I think when you get into that kind of position of being an attorney or a judge, if you move up, I don't know that all attorneys are involved, but
I agree. Yes.
Some level, right. Those that are willing to be willing participants and the mind control and participating in targeting and basically breaking family. I mean, the family courts are filled with these kinds of.
Oh, absolutely. I've worked in foster care and absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So how has your personal experiences with abduction encounters shaped your understanding of the paranormal world? The paranormal world, exploring occult and shadow governance? Did you?
Okay, so I guess for a long time I was kind of grappling with what these entities actually were. Like, are they aliens? Are they demons? What do they represent? And what I've come to realize, I guess, on my own time is that there really is no difference. I mean, there's so much controversy in our community about what reptilians are, what grays are. I mean, you get the Christians that think these things are just demonic influences and that's it. And then you have the people who have more of a, I guess, like atheistic bend. And then they're like, oh no, they're just aliens, or even, no, it's a psyop and they don't exist whatsoever. Space is fake, all of that stuff. So I guess for me, like, I kind of like to blend those two ways of thinking. And I believe, I mean, they're just like negatively oriented and polarized influences that are extraterrestrial, I guess. If that's what you mean.
Yeah, well, yes, that is what I mean. Well, what I was asking is how, okay, let me re-ask the question so we're clear. How has your personal experiences with abduction encounters shaped your understanding of the paranormal world? Exploring occult and shadow governance.
Sure. Well, the reptilians and the grays, they're interdimensional and they're highly psychic. So I guess like aliens and the paranormal and abduction, I mean, it's all one thing if you want to tie it together. There's really no separation in those, like I said, some of the reptilians are like fifth dimensional too. So you could classify that as paranormal. And I've actually met a reptilian before. And I mean, this is after my involvement in the projects, like years and years and years after. And I don't know, do you want me to go into that or no? Is that kind of like a tangent?
Absolutely. I want to, yes. We would
love okay.
Yeah.
So, and actually I kind of have to backtrack for this to make sense. So in many of my other lives, I've actually been, I know that sounds pretty out there, I've actually been part of the entertainment industry. I think for a lot of other incarnations or times that I've been here on planet Earth. When I was 19, I got contacted, and I'm not exactly sure who it was. I got like an email, and it was basically, kind of your traditional invite to be part of the entertainment industry of the Illuminati. And like, how they phrased it to me was basically you just have to worship. I mean, it's kind of so typical. It's like what every other celebrity says that they had to do. They just ask you to worship the devil basically, and like to do certain rituals with them. And, they say that they've been watching you for a long time. They see what you're capable of and that they want you to do this with them. So they offered me that at 19. And then I said no. And long story short, like they told me that they were going to make my life like a living hell if I didn't want to do this with them. And I didn't really believe them. I thought this whole thing was a joke. I mean, there's a lot of plausible deniability. It was over an email, for God's sake. So I was like, I don't know how you guys found me or like what you guys are up to, but I don't know. It just seems like a scam or like a joke or like, so I didn't really take it seriously, but sure enough, like my entire life started, I believe they were doing witchcraft on me. Like my whole life fell apart very, very quickly. And I also noticed like some remote influence in terms of like the MK Ultra programming that I received as a kid as part of like the CIA family. So they were using the programming that they already done on me to try to make me go absolutely, basically like insane, crazy. And they were remotely influencing like a lot of different things around me to basically just my entire life fell apart. And I can go more into that later. But essentially, like in a lot of other lifetimes, I believe I have been kind of part of like the dark side, quote unquote. Like I have participated in the entertainment industry. I believe I've definitely been famous like a couple of times. And I think that's why I was a dancer for many years and I was very good at that. And I made a lot of money. And I believe that's part of why I was just very used to being on stage in front of a lot of people performing. So that was second nature to me. But when I was 21, like I got, there was like this reptilian and he said that he was from Oregon, but I had a friend that told me that he had seen him hanging around the place that I lived in Michigan actually for a while. So I think this entity had been like watching me for a while. I don't know whether or not to call it human. He looked human, but he wasn't. But I don't know. Eventually he like contacted me on Facebook and he's like, you helped me do my Starfire rituals in a lot of past incarnations and I recognize you and I want to meet up again. I feel very emotional, like that I found you. And it was just like this really strange, like long letter that I got from him basically. And I mean, I was intrigued by it. So I'm like, okay, let's meet then. So he ended up coming to my apartment and staying with me. And he said he was, traveling from Oregon, but I really don't know where he was from because I have some friends that said that he was hanging around my area. And he had like a chip in the back of his neck, which I learned later from watching a Journey to Truth podcast. A lot of clones have a chip in the back of their neck, and that's where they store all the memories and DNA. And he claimed that he was a de Medici, and that he had also been part of the Black Projects, and he had been tortured in this life. And it was just like the most strange experience. And then one time when I was meditating with him, and we were both kind of in an altered state of consciousness, for lack of a better term, I actually saw his real astral form, which was like a 12-foot reptilian that was coming out of the back of, kind of like behind him, sort of. It was kind of like an overlay. Like, it's not like he transformed into a reptilian, but his astral body was straight, like Jupiter ascending reptilian, for sure. And during this experience, I also saw myself transforming into a being from Sirius. And I didn't really know what kind of being it was at the time that I was transforming. I just saw it in my mind's eye. And then I happened to find that same species, I guess, on an artist's website. And the artist was drawing beings from Sirius B. And so I found out that, that was like some sort of species on Sirius B that I guess I had been in a past incarnation. And I think what happened was we created a sort of like I don't know how to describe it. I think we had done magic in a past life to create a time portal so that in this life I would remember what happened in a past life, or who I was in a past life, or something of that nature. And later I found out that starfire rituals are something that the occult is still doing, and Hollywood still does them a lot, and they do it to contact beings from Sirius, believe it or not. And that's what that whole ritual is about. They use menstrual blood to contact beings from Sirius, especially.
Do you mind? I know what it is, but
yeah,
for the listeners, those that don't know what that is, do you mind sharing with the audience what exactly starfire?
Sure. So women who carry like a certain gene, some people call it the X gene. Really, what it is it's a connection to Sirius, which I have. And like, if you look at my astrology chart, like I have a very exalted Sirius position. Like I have a 3-planet conjunction that's really rare, and it's conjuncting my Sirius star, which is in the right sign, and like everything's lined up. So I have like basically like some DNA that's from Sirius. So women that have that connection are able to use their menstrual blood to do, rituals at certain times of the year in order to contact beings that are on Sirius B. And it's called the Starfire Ritual, and it's been going on, for millennia. And that's something that I participated in past incarnations.
Okay, what is it about the menstrual blood that is required in order for the ritual to be successful? Do you know?
Let me think about how to best answer this. I mean, it's like the power of creation. It's power of the womb. So, I mean, that's, I believe, why. Like, and there's also just a lot of stem cells and a lot of concentrated energy that's in that blood that just isn't. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I don't. Nope. I think you answered it perfect. I think you answered it perfectly.
Thank you. So it was just and then I have like, my birthday is on the same day that Phoebe, which is the moon on Saturn that a lot of the beings from Sirius are on right now, was discovered. And then I have my Sirius in Cancer conjunct my Mars and my Jupiter. And it's located on my midheaven. And that exact placement means that I have like that's the only exact placement I know relative to the Sirius star that means you have like an exalted Sirius position and a lot of like past life connections to planet Sirius. So that was why the occult was interested in me.
Yeah.
That and like Lilith is exactly conjunct my midheaven in my progressed chart, like a 0.00 conjunction, which means I could have handled the goddess energy very easily. So they were interested in using that for like the entertainment industry when I was younger, and I just didn't want to do it in this incarnation. I believe that I probably learned from a lot of past ones what that entails, but they were really not happy when I said no. So.
Well, Phoenix, I can tell you just from connecting with you the few times through Facebook, and I was lucky to have met you at the Journey to Truth, and I can tell you, you hold a great deal of goddess energy.
Thank you. That means so much. I appreciate it. I have my whole life. I never understood it. It definitely wasn't an appearance thing, because I definitely went through an ugly duckling stage. But regardless of that, like people were always like, I never understood why I attracted so much sexual like attention naturally. no matter what I did, it was really weird. And then I realized, oh, it's like a frequency that I'm holding. It's not an
That's
actual
correct.
ritual. Yeah.
And you're a beautiful woman, and you're super
Thank you.
intelligent, and you're very humble and kind, and I think you're amazing. And
Thank you. I think you're amazing too. I appreciate that. Yes.
yeah. So okay, so we'll move to the what motivated you to delve into the occult and shadow governance, and what are some key discoveries you've made in your research and your pursuit for advanced degrees in the school that you're, or the college, the courses that you're taking? We'll share a little bit more about your history and your background, and then I'd like to shift into what you're doing today as an inspiration to others, that even though we've been so many of us are having these awakening experiences and remembering being used in trauma-based mind control and my lab, and different there's so many projects and programs running. I mean,
Yeah.
but the true blessing is that so many are waking and taking responsibility for themselves to turn their lives around and to take full ownership of their self-empowerment and personal responsibility to heal and to move forward and to create a better life for themselves. And you're one of them. And I think you're a huge inspiration to many women.
Thank you so much.
That matter. So if you don't mind, I mean, so do you practice occult? Like, do you do rituals now? And are you participating in these kinds of things? And if so, do you do magic? What is it that you're involved in?
Okay. So would you like me, I guess I'll just answer your last question first.
Yes, answer. Yes, whatever you feel. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So do I do rituals? I have in the past, when I was like a teenager, especially. I mean, I come from like a long lineage of this, and I've done it in many past lives. So this is just like second nature to me. When I was like 3 or 4, I already understood psychic abilities. And while mine had actually been turned off after the projects, like I was constantly trying to turn my own abilities back on, if that makes sense. Like I knew for sure that I could, like, if I wanted to and concentrated hard enough, I could jump into someone else's thoughts or read their thoughts or like feel their emotions or understand their perspective from like a supernatural point of view. And I even knew that psychokinesis, like moving objects and stuff like that, like I knew that was possible. And I was always trying to do it, or always trying to get signs or like divine. So I had a natural proclivity towards that. And I believe that's just because of the lineage that I came from, because I'm from a bloodline family. And also because they did use me for that, even though they kind of turn you off afterwards. Like if your abilities aren't helping them or, serving them in some way, they don't really want you to have access to them. So that was always something I was naturally interested in. But as far as actual rituals go, when I was a teenager, like my late teens, yes, I did start doing some witchcraft. And I kind of had some unintended consequences from some of the stuff that I did. But as far as simple things like manifesting money for a vacation or the like, yeah. I remember one time I used to be really into Crowley, and I have an affinity just because, again, I've had so many past lives doing this. Like Babylon, the goddess that Crowley was involved with. That's actually another name for the planet Sirius. That's another reason why they're always contacting Sirius. Babylon is like the earth goddess and like the fertile mother and the mother of abominations. That's another name for like Sirius. And Aleister Crowley has a lot of ties to Sirius as well. And I've been involved with that goddess for like a long time. I saw her sigil astrally before I even knew who she was when I was meditating and things like that, just because I've had so many past incarnations with that goddess. So while working with her, it was really easy. If I did some invocations, I remember I wanted to go on a vacation one time, but I didn't have any money. So I just did like a ritual involving her. And then 30 minutes later, one of my friends called me and was like, do you want to go to the casino tonight? Because there's a really rich guy that wants to meet you. And I was like, sure, why not? I wasn't busy. I was 21, kind of interested in partying. Sure enough, like I go out there with my friend. We meet up with this rich guy at the casino. And like all I have to do is like flirt with him, and he gives me $100, and I end up winning like $3,000, and then I can like head out to the vacation. So stuff like that. Easy. Other things like I remember one time I had this ex-boyfriend who was kind of like an NPC. Like he just didn't really seem to have much of like a soul. He's like a business major and made a lot of money even at the age of 19 through Bitcoin and other things that he was doing. But he didn't have like, it's hard to explain. It's like he didn't have a spirit. And I remember one time I was in a deep meditation state, and these beings are coming around me, and they're like telling me that I needed to give birth to his soul or something. So it was really weird, but I ended up doing this thing that they were like guiding me through. And then like, I guess like a month or two later, like he told me there's something that he had to tell me, and that he was actually not interested in women. And he had figured out that he was trans, and like he had like this new light in his eye, and it was like very bizarre. I was kind of just like looking at him, and then I'm like, you know, I was hurt by it because I felt like I was in love with him despite kind of the disconnect, because I was young and I didn't really know what that meant, you know. And then he told me that his new name was Victoria Elizabeth, which means victory of Elizabeth, and my first name is Elizabeth. And so I realized that whatever I had just done, like he had kind of come into contact with his true self, and like it's kind of budding inside of him, and I had some sort of catalytic, like I had been some sort of a catalyst for him embodying his true nature. So that was a bizarre experience. And other things like that. So yes, I have done them. I don't sit around with witchcraft books like Aleister Crowley and think about it or like read it and then like do the invocation exactly. I more so go off of my intuition and like my past lives and things that come to me naturally. But as I've grown older, I've become like a little bit more discerning about what things I listen to. Just because, you know, if you listen to the wrong things, like there can be some unintended, like I said, like consequences for doing things like that. So I remember one time I like did a love spell on me and another person and it worked. But then like I ended up like with the bad end of the stick because that person was just abusive and awful. And so I try to like let things occur more organically now and just move in the direction or flow of like how the universe wants to move anyway, just for the greatest good of everybody rather than for my selfish intention. But I believe that because of all my past lives doing this stuff, I did have some proclivity to be selfish in the past, you know, so I just don't do that anymore. So I don't engage in like black magic, and I wouldn't even say white magic, unless you want to call healing yourself through like herbs and stuff like that, like white magic. But and then as far as like my interest in the occult and why I had it, or again, that was something that kind of, I think it occurred like organically because they had been using me in these projects for a long time, and I knew something was wrong, like something was not normal. Just because of like little blips of memories I'd have, or like PTSD for reasons that didn't make sense to me. You know, just because of like everything that I experienced, I was so messed up from it and had so many irrational fears that people would like think that I was on, like when I was like a kid in like middle school, people would think I was on drugs, you know, when I was completely sober. Just because I've been through so much that I didn't remember. And, you know, obviously I think I was used in some time distortion projects. So a part of me was like still operating somewhere else. And it just caused so much internal confusion that I think I was looking for answers because I knew something was wrong, you know, and I had like some like weird thoughts, like even when I was like 7 or 8, I remember my dad was talking about aliens and he's like, well, alien life couldn't exist on like Mars or any of these other places because the conditions needed for biological life just don't exist there. And I remember like arguing with him at like age 7 or 8 and being like, well, who's to say that their biological systems don't require the elements that are present on those planets? Like I was already thinking like that, you know, and the reason for that was because they used me in these projects and I just didn't have access to my memories. So I would get these hints from the universe, like you're holding these memories in your subconscious mind, you know, you need to learn how, like, you know, you have to unravel this. And I just would get these hints, I guess, from both my subconscious and just synchronicities in the environment. And so by the age of like 18 or 19, I just started noticing, like, you know, music videos and stuff, like, why are they all worshiping the devil in these music videos? You know, it's just bizarre. Why are they doing that? Or I would just notice things that didn't make sense, like 9/11 is definitely fake. One of my teachers had shown us that in school. And so I already kind of had these thoughts seeded into my mind, and I would just meet people along my path that already knew about all this stuff, like the Illuminati and what was going on and conspiracies, and working with energy and working with the elements and sacred geometry and all that. So it was kind of just a natural unfolding. And I think I was open to it or had interest in it because I'd already experienced it in the Black projects when I was a kid. So my subconscious mind, even if my conscious mind wasn't trying to accept it, was just because it was in my experience. So it's not like some random person on the street who's never been involved in these things and has had like a relatively normal life. He might just like dismiss these things as crazy or not be compelled to think in that direction, if that makes sense.
So you said a lot there, and thank you for sharing and being so forthright with all of us. Yeah. So do you have an inclination or memory of what you were being used in the projects and programs for? Do you have memory of that? And do you know what programs you were using besides the MK Ultra, which,
they I think that's like their baseline for everybody that they're going to use. They want to do some MK Ultra on you because they need to be able to switch you. Like when I said no to the entertainment industry, I felt like I completely disconnected from my emotions for some reason for like forever, like very off balance. Like they even used the voice of God programming on me one time to try to get me to kill myself, which didn't work luckily. But yeah, I mean, they wanted, after they figured out that I wasn't going to do what they wanted me to do, they wanted me to kill myself. So I would never remember what they did. And that was really scary and hard to get through. And they used a lot of people they had some access to turn against me as well in my environment, which sounds absolutely bonkers. Like you can't say that, but that's really what happened. But as far as what I was used for as a kid, so I know that there's been some projects that the CIA has where they use like children's psychic abilities to remotely kill people or to remotely influence bad things to happen. Have you heard of those? Or no? I mean, I'm not saying that I killed anybody, but I didn't. But like these projects that the CIA has, have you heard of their projects where they use the psychic abilities of children to like remotely influence things going on?
I have heard of that. And I was told that I was using in assassin programming, and I have no memory of that and can't imagine that I would ever.
I can't either. I don't really know exactly what they're doing with me, but that's what I believe that's the gist of it. And I think also time distortion, like because I definitely feel like there was an alternative version of me running around somewhere else. So I think it has something to do with time distortion, and then also using my psychic abilities to, do whatever they were doing, or to figure out what was going to happen in the future, etc. That's where like my intuitions, inclinations, and the information that's been coming to me has been taking me. And then I also have like just these strange memories of, I don't know. I remember like hearing this music one time when I was at a party and like having memories of watching like reptilians eat people and stuff like that. So I've definitely interacted with the aliens, and then like some of these pictures of reptilians, like it kind of like triggers a visceral, like disgusted reaction within me, like of fear. I remember I couldn't look at like skeletons or cadavers when I was a kid either. It freaked me out in a way that wasn't freaking the other kids out at school. I mean, like if I saw anything like that, I would like have like a panic attack and like I have to ask the teacher to stop, or like even if it was just like Halloween music about death or dying, or it would disturb me in such like a deep way that I had to like leave the room. And like, it got to the point where I was like refusing to come to class if the teacher didn't turn off certain things or like remove the skeleton decorations. I couldn't look at cadavers. So something to do with reptilians, something to do with time distortion, and being used for psychic ability to remotely influence things that were going on and to, look into the future, which they have a lot of different avenues to do that. They have the looking glass technology. They have chronovisors in the underground places in the Vatican, etc. And then they also have people, obviously, they could just look into the future themselves without any of that. So,
yeah. Well, I find that interesting because I've never, I think I've dressed up for Halloween twice in my life. One time, I think I dressed up as, I loved the movie with John Travolta and, oh my gosh, my mind is going blank. What is it? From a long time ago? Okay. Anyways, I dressed up like a 50s girl, with the.
Yeah. Are you talking about Pulp Fiction or no?
Not Pulp. I love that movie, Pulp Fiction.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, the one way. Grease. Yes. Yeah. And I was so fascinated with the whole falling in love and the bad girl. What was her name?
Sandy? I don't know if that was a bad girl. That was a good girl.
Bad girl, the one that smoked and couldn't keep a boyfriend and was sexually, like, the programming was so clear. Now I get it, but I didn't then.
I know, it's crazy, right? They make you think it's a good idea to be like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think one other time, I think when I got older, I think I dressed up as a Playboy bunny or something in my later teens.
Sure, we all women are programs,
yeah,
one way or the other. It could be the Madonna or the whore.
Yeah, I don't participate in Halloween. I don't give candy out. I think that it's parents they're sovereign to choose and decide how they raise their children, but I just don't participate in it. I think there's so much harm that takes place on that day.
Oh, absolutely. The veil is so thin too. I mean,
absolutely.
Same with Walpurgis Night.
I never liked scary movies when I was a kid. I didn't watch scary movies. I remember one time my mom took us to see Jaws, and my brother dared me to stay in the theater because my mom, every time every time Jaws was coming, she would get up and run out of the theater and go into the bathroom, and I would go with her. And my brother decided to dare me to stay, and it's when Jaws bit the girl's leg off, and that traumatized me so bad, Phoenix. When I got home that night, and I just did it because it was my older brother, and I wanted to prove I was tough somehow, and I couldn't. And I swore Jaws was coming out of the faucet, and I love the ocean. I mean, so it was a little bit, but of course I'm over that now. But yes, these types of movies and different TV shows and all of that. I mean, it's all used for psychological warfare as far as
it is. They feed off of it. The theaters themselves are placed strategically so that they can feed off of the loosh that's coming from people's reactions to stuff like that. Yes. So,
and I tell people that all the time, Phoenix, all concert halls, all post offices, concert halls, churches, government buildings, they're strategically by the ley lines of the planet are built on top of these energy vortexes.
Yes, I've seen that. Actually, a group of aliens showed me that when I was in the astral realm one time. They took me on board with their craft and were showing me, like, I guess they were bored, so they were building like human hybrids, or like kind of mixing our DNA with other things. And like they were showing me their projects and stuff. And then that's what they showed me. They showed me a map of like the entire world, and they're like, every single place that you're visiting is a ley line that intersects with other dimensions and opens certain portals and can do certain things. So when you're drawn to certain things, that's why, I guess I totally agree with you. Post offices, though, that's interesting. Why would that be?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So the post office, from my understanding, they hold arsenal below most post offices.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and and I don't know what else is going on, but we know that the post office is considered, what is it? It's government, obviously.
Yeah,
it's federal government. But they have particular I don't know if the word laws, I don't know if laws is the right, but they have like more authority than we realize. And I don't even like using the word authority because nobody has authority over us, but they have certain things that they're involved in. Unless you do the research, we wouldn't know. We just think it's a post office and we're shipping and mailing and receiving.
It's always like that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It always looks innocent, so
Yeah. And we know, cloning is a big part of getting back to what you were talking about and astral and being used in the projects and programs and your past lives, remembering that you were potentially a superstar or somebody that was famous and all these things.
That's usually what they use me for when I'm here.
Yeah.
Yes.
I totally get it. So now, if you don't, unless there's more, is there anything more that you want to share? Because we could do a second show if you like, and we can go in more.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah.
You come back. I love talking to you. I think you're super intelligent, and I definitely know that we can hold a conversation that we're both getting, and hopefully the people that are listening will get. Either we'll plant a seed or you'll share something that may trigger somebody in a good way, meaning that they look into their own experiences and maybe, find some or receive a valuable message from you because I'd like to move into what you're doing now as far as inspiring people to take authority over their and governance over their own body, mind, spirit.
Okay.
Do you feel that you've done that? I mean,
Do I feel like I've done that? I feel like it's a process for all of us.
yes,
sure.
absolutely. I get it. And some days I'm really good at it, and some days I feel like I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I mean,
yeah, we're all dealing, especially when you start waking up and you start being a threat to, I guess, the powers that be, or especially this is true if you've been used in the projects and they've been using you. I mean, they're definitely keeping tabs on us, 110% for sure. I mean, like, age 30 is when the MK Ultra programming starts to break down, or you start getting back some of your memories. Sure. And so I remember I was kind of distracted for about a year doing Matrix things. Like, I had a job in foster care. I just got into my therapy, like my master's program, and I was involved, in a stupid relationship with like a doctor, an MD, and it was all distracting. But then once I started coming back to myself and like started going through my awakening again, I was looking into a lot of like David Icke stuff and having a lot of more paranormal experiences. They put a tracker on my car, like when I was out driving one day, and I don't remember how I figured this out, but the tracker was coming from a lab. It was just an air tag that they put on my vehicle, and then like my phone alerted me that it had been like following me for about, I guess, an hour by the time that I got back to my place. I don't know why, but I just was like, I'll just deal with this tomorrow. So I came back out to the car the next day to find it, and they had already removed it, so I couldn't find it. But then like a month later, I was at a party, and it was the only time that I had gone out besides going to school for like, I don't know, months, because I was busy. And someone messed with my engine while I was at the party. And so when I was driving back home the next day, my engine almost gave out on me in the middle of the highway. And, had I like not taken action when I did, there was a chance that it would have just given out. Yeah, I could have died basically. So, I mean, like, there's that. And then there's obviously, they have all sorts of things with the technology once you've been involved in these projects, they have enough information on you to basically manipulate you in whatever way through the technology. So the voice to skull stuff, different frequencies that can block certain chakras, different frequencies that can make you feel lethargic or make you feel depressed, or even trigger memories of like some past traumatic event to try to get you stuck in like your past. And like, I think a lot of people don't realize like that we're dealing with witchcraft and like warfare, and also technologically speaking, we're dealing with a lot of really criminal and crazy, almost sci-fi things that they can do with the technology. So when you wake up and start taking your sovereignty back, I mean, it is a process, and you do have to, because you're not like just a normal person that, they don't have their eye on and they're not doing anything to. Like, you're dealing not just with like the consequences or the burden of knowing what you know about our world and what really is going on and how things really work, but you're also dealing with, people that have thousands of years of information about how to manipulate you, not just psychologically, but also frequency wise, with the things that they have available to them. So taking your sovereignty back and creating the life that you want here on earth is definitely a process that takes a lot of time, effort, and dedication, and vigilance, I would say. So I think like for us, it's almost unreasonable for us to be expected to. Are you there? Hello, Ida?
I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. Almost unreasonable for us to be.
I tried to hit the unmute button. I try to mute while my guests are speaking so I don't interrupt.
Sure. Sorry about that.
No, you don't have to be be about anything, Phoenix.
The problem I have. Anyway, so I think it's unreasonable for us to expect ourselves to just overnight be able to snap our fingers. And yes, now we've created and manifested everything that we're dreaming of, because we're battling against like an enemy that's really intelligent and really doesn't want any of this getting out. Yeah.
Well, what do you think about recently about them coming out on, I think it was CBS. Somebody has sent me a video, and I can send it to you, where they're admitting that there's alien life.
It's coming out all over now, for sure.
It definitely is, because there's enough of us waking up and having our own experiences. They really can't control the narrative anymore.
It's getting difficult, yes, but I think that they still would like to, and I think that they still want to.
They're going to keep trying, for sure. They're going to keep trying, and especially those that people can believe what they want. I mean, I don't particularly practice any particular religion. I live a spiritual life. I do believe in the divine. I believe in the supreme source creator of all things, which is us as individuals and as a collective consciousness, the highest intelligence. It's the super conscious, the super intelligence. I do believe in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I don't worship anybody, not God, I don't. I say thank you to my higher self, because my higher self is the supreme source, right? I'm an aspect of it. You are, and all of us are. And
agreed. Yes.
Yeah. So, but I do say thank you. And when I come in contact with people like yourself and other people that I feel, pulled towards, I honor your divinity, your dark and your light. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're bringing forward, Phoenix. I think
Thank
it's so important. Do I necessarily like the evil that's taking place on this planet? Absolutely not. But at the same time, I say to myself, I can only do what I can do from the point, from the conscious awareness that I'm at, and in the position that I'm in my local area, sharing with people, or doing shows like this to bring people like, guests on like yourself that have had experiences that can share some insight to, especially for those that are newly awakening or are struggling with their own healing and their own processing their memories and so forth. I mean, it could be definitely, I went through a long dark night of the soul. I mean,
yes, same 10 years plus. Yes.
Yeah, I was
because of all that warfare. I mean, they do witchcraft on you, and they use their technology, so they really want to keep you stuck. I mean, like they want people like us to be locked up, dead, crazy, low vibrational, working at McDonald's. Like not that I've ever done that, but you know what I mean. Like they want us to be living like a pretty low vibrational. Yeah, they don't want us to be able to be in a position where we could help other people or awaken, or I mean, it really is.
And expand and grow our own soul and grow and tap into our own superpower,
exactly.
Which we all have, and they can do whatever they. I mean, I don't consent to it. They don't have it. I don't give consent for them to block me in any way. Yes, but I understand that the effort is there from their standpoint, especially going through what the experiences I went through, which we're not here today to discuss. But sometimes it's a little hard for me to do interviews with people because it just gets me in my mind about
the similarities.
Yes. But I want people to excel. I want people to feel good. I want, especially women. I am a lover of my sisters. All right.
That's such a beautiful thing. Yes.
Yes. And I want us to, and not that I love men. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, I just feel like there's a certain point, like us women really need to step up and corral and come together in a big way. And because I think it's the divine feminine that's really going to cause the tipping point for us to tip over to the other side.
Well, yeah, because the feminine it's what's been shut down on the planet, like with the cremation of care ceremony that they do every year. All the feminine vortex points are being suppressed as well, because it's that principle of care and compassion and nurturing that they don't want.
That's right.
So they're attacking it.
Why do you think? What is it that you think? Why do you think the divine feminine has been? And so they've had such a stronghold.
Yeah, the X is out of religion too, if you've noticed. It's always
what is it about the divine feminine that they?
I think it's the principle of care. It's the same thing that they do every year at the Bohemian Grove. So that, they like sacrifice children and do that weird ritual with the owl so that they can like do evil things and not feel any remorse about it. They're sacrificing their own conscience. So I think it's that principle of nurturing. It's that principle of unconditional love. It's that principle of creativity. And all those things that you would associate with a mother, like unconditional love, caring, nurturing, compassion for one another, connection. All those things are very feminine.
So what do you think? Well, yes. And so what do you think about standing in your like being a sexual being and
that too. Although I do think that their agenda is kind of switched because, from the 60s to like the early 2000s, they were kind of preaching promiscuous sexuality and the principle of like one night stands, and that's an attack on the family unit, because at this point,
absolutely,
yeah,
yes.
over 50% of children are going to grow up without like a father figure or a mother figure, and that's just an attack on their psyche, because if they don't have a mother or father figure, then what do they have? They have the government, so then they're going to be dependent on
that is so true. I'm so thankful you just said that.
Yeah,
but really, Phoenix, I don't think people really get it.
Yep, that's what that was about. Yeah, it was an attack on the family unit. So there's that, and like the women are the ones that hold access to sexuality, obviously. I mean, like we are the ones that say yes or no. And so if we, the goal was to get us to pick more psychopathic mates, because psychopathic mates are the ones that are interested in the one night stand thing. So like they were trying to like make sure that a certain type of male was the type that got to reproduce, and it had to be the most Machiavellian, most narcissistic, most psychopathic type, for one thing. And then for another, they just didn't want people to grow up with like a strong father figure or to have that strong family unit. So by influencing women to behave promiscuously, they, kind of were able to socially engineer the next generation to be.
Yeah. So I know that every time when we have sex with somebody, we share codes.
Yeah, that too. And they're just degrading the feminine.
Military from our partner to pick up information about all of our partners, for that matter. I mean, And I know that they have a lot of this honeypot, or whatever you want to call it. I forgot. Is that what it's called? Honeypot, I think.
That's one of the things it's called, yes.
Yeah, they use the women to go out and, manipulate and compromise men. And they do it with men too. I mean.
Yeah. It's a little harder with men, but yes.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure. So I think that was like the goal. And now they're doing the transhumanism thing. So I think they're kind of trying to slowly delete, maybe like almost delete sexuality out of, because now everybody, they're influencing people's hormones so they're less sexually potent, and kind of, I think they're getting ready to do the transhumanism thing. From what I can see from this standpoint, they're confusing people about their gender. There's a lot of like the trans thing, which obviously transgender people are basically eunuchs. They can't reproduce whatsoever. So, I think that's what the attack on sexuality was about. As far as reclaiming our sexuality, I think we need to integrate, both the pure aspects and the super sexual aspects. And as far as what I think healthy sexuality looks like, I know there's a lot of people that have different opinions on this, and I can't speak to everybody's personal choices.
I was just going to ask you the question, so I think it's interesting that you just said that. So
yes, I mean, I used to, obviously I danced for a long time, and I kind of held a certain perspective of it at that point, and I think that was an important part of my evolution. And I'd never tell somebody not to like go through what I went through, but I wasn't really fulfilled by those experiences at the same time, and I felt exploited. I felt like, as well as I felt like kind of like I was exploiting people's weaknesses, and I also felt kind of exploited. Like I didn't really feel empowered. Yes. I do feel like on stage I did feel like I was embodying the goddess energy, and I feel like that is like artistic and sensual and a beautiful thing. But I would rather have done that in the context of a really powerful monogamous relationship. And I feel like there's an attack on, because I do feel like romantic sexual love is, when it's true and like it's in, I don't want to say twin flame, because that's such an excuse for like a bunch of narcissistic bullshit that people are experiencing. Yeah, the runner chaser bullshit or whatever. But I do think there is such a thing as like a divine union, and I think that when two people that really are meant to come into that divine union manage to overcome all the obstacles that are holding them back and get together and like have like that true energy of real love between them, and when they come together sexually, it's kind of the melding of souls, or the exchanging, or like the interweaving of that love and the combining of it, and then they share it with the world. I think that is one of the most powerful forces present on the planet, and I think that's why the powers that be are so intimidated by that and have been encouraging promiscuity and the division between the sexes. And
to weaken us, and also, we know that our sexual energy is our creative force energy.
Exactly. So I think if you really have that true unconditional partnership between you and the person you're meant to be with, that is one of the most powerful things on planet Earth. And there's an attack on that on purpose. And I do think reclaiming our sexuality is part of that, because we're taught to be so ashamed on the one hand, and then also to use it to exploit or to get our way, or as a source of our worth on the other. So it's a very confusing message. And I do think that healing that is a really important part of coming into our wholeness.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you, Phoenix. I've
Thank
enjoyed
you.
listening, and I definitely subscribe to your way of thinking because I also think along those lines. So let me ask you, what common struggle do people with paranormal experiences face, and how do you guide them towards empowerment and healing?
Gosh, that's so important. I mean, even now today when I'm speaking to you, like, I mean, there's just, because we've been so conditioned by our culture, and because, well, I've actually read a book by Ingo Swann, the psychic for the CIA, that said that actually up to 70% of people have had at least one paranormal experience. So it's actually more common than not. And these days, more people believe in aliens than not too. But for some reason, it's still such a taboo in our culture. Like even at the conference, I would be telling people about some of the experiences I've had, and I kind of felt like they were looking at me or like hearing me like I was crazy, or like, like
No, I get it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, I think the biggest struggle that we all face is like that instinctual feeling that this is nuts. I made this up. This can't be real. We kind of like gaslight ourselves in a way, or like this must be a false memory, or I'm losing my mind. So I would say like when people experience a lot of paranormal, it can be really isolating because you're not really sure who you can talk to or what you can say to the people that you can talk to, or even if you do find other people in the community who've experienced similar, are they going to believe you, or are they going to think that you're an attention seeker, or like some ulterior motive? So I think just finding a safe space and people that can validate your experiences without a lot of judgment or a lot of like disbelief or doubt, which of course that can be healthy in small doses, but just kind of finding their tribe and being able to connect with people. I think that's the most healing aspect, is when you connect with people that have had similar experiences that also will believe you. Because I think the most imperative thing is for people to feel like they're not crazy, or to know that, hey, this really is real. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I found about finding different communities, kind of like the Journey to Truth community or the Understanding community that Seven Bomar runs. He's an amazing, I think Seven Bomar is probably the most brilliant, or the most.
Seven Bomar?
Yes.
Oh my God. I think, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you knew about Seven
Oh
Bomar.
my gosh, I've followed him since before he was famous. Yeah, I've had conversations with him.
2011, and he is, I think, by far,
the
most intelligent, genius, loving, correct. Like, he is he is my go-to. I watch.
Same.
So I don't know if you ever saw Soul Control, and if you haven't, I'll send it to you. But he references about the divine feminine. We hold, or women hold, light in our wombs, and that's what they come after, especially once you've had a Kundalini.
Oh my goodness, that makes so much sense.
You the video, you're gonna love it, and there's
I will. What's amazing about Seven?
Jesus, Yahweh, Odin, all these names that we hear are basically the same soul. Well, you got to hear it. Maybe I didn't say that the way he said. I mean, don't quote me on that. But if you watch it, like I could watch it 5 times and still
learn something new.
Yes.
And the thing that's amazing about
his community, and then realize I'm not really good with computers, Phoenix, so I struggle a bit. And it was hard for me to really engage in the community kind of thing on his, because I wanted to take some of his courses and so forth, but it just became like I own that I struggle with computers, and I just stopped trying to, I just take things in small doses the best I can with what I can navigate through, and anything really, I don't know. I'm sure if somebody showed me how to do it, I learned by actually doing it, somebody teaching me in that way, rather than going on a computer and following directions and how to do something.
Kinesthetic learner. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is that called?
It's called a kinesthetic learner as opposed to a visual learner. Kinesthetic learner. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. You just taught me something. I appreciate it.
Yeah, he's incredible. The thing about listening to him is, at least for me, it seems like every time I tend to click on one of his videos, it's almost like my higher self is speaking to me, because for some reason it always directly pertains to something that I'm actively struggling with, or just
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, he's just a really big, I mean, he's like an oversoul almost at this point in his
I
consciousness.
absolutely agree.
Yes.
And he is definitely tapped in, tuned in, and very good at what he does. He's
I think he's the best probably that I've ever. Yeah.
So, well, no wonder I feel so. Well, that's another reason that I feel so. I mean, I must have known that somehow.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Because I don't meet too many people that know who he is.
I know, isn't that crazy? Because he's really, I think it's because he's so far up there
all the time. And I don't know, for whatever reason, people feel resistant towards him. You know what I think, and I'm not saying everybody, but there's a lot of people, they just don't want to watch it. And they're really shortchanging themselves, because they would learn so much. They would become aware. But this is the thing. You have to have the frequency of truth in you to really be able to receive the information.
That's exactly what I was about to tell you. Yeah. Because like people who are not high frequency, they're like, I don't understand a word that this man just said.
That's right. So if you can't, and I get it all, trust me.
Same.
I may not want to re-explain it the way I get it, because my communication, but I get it. And he's helped me more than anybody on this. Yes. And I one day I'd love to have him come on the show, and I'm actually friends with him on Facebook, and I've
had a couple conversations with him before he got really big.
Yeah. He's amazing.
He is. He's so humble too. Just an incredible example.
Well, maybe I could see if I can get something set up where us three come on together. Because
goodness, I'd be starstruck, but for sure. Yes.
What?
I'd probably be too starstruck, because he's just
No, Phoenix. No, you wouldn't. You're such an intelligent. Your own genius shines through, honey.
Thank you.
Yes, you would be able to. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. If it's meant to happen, it will. And it'd be something I would love to be a part of, to have you both on and having this discussion about, all of this stuff. I mean, the guy is just amazing, but so are you. So we're not here. You're here. You're my guest today. I'm so grateful that you came on. I'm thankful you took a chance with me. We are running at 4:12 now. So if we can move into a few questions, and Phoenix, I would love to have you come back. We could do another episode and maybe pick a topic that we both want to really have just a conversation, not necessarily an interview around. And then we could share our own perspectives about whatever the topic is, and maybe, help do our best to help other, I would say, women in particular. I mean, is that something you think you would be interested in collaborating on? Or,
yes, absolutely. I enjoyed this. Yes.
Or possibly I could get a couple other women that I think you would appreciate as well, and we could do like a women's roundtable and have a discussion. Do you think?
Yeah, I would love that. I'm sure I'd learn a lot.
Okay. All right. So, what are some of the effective tools or techniques you recommend for healing trauma associated with paranormal experiences, and how do you believe psychic abilities are passed down through generations? And what advice do you have for those who think they might have inherited these abilities? So those are questions you can answer either or both, whatever you feel called to answer. Do you want me to reread them to you?
So the first aspect of like tools to heal from the trauma of these paranormal experiences. Well, first of all, you need to know what you're healing from, especially if we're talking about, it depends, I guess, on what type of paranormal we're talking about. But if it's the black projects or something that they've wiped your memory on, a big part of it, you can have PTSD and like symptoms like that and like be reacting to things and you don't even know why you're reacting that way, right? So it's like if you have normal PTSD, you know what caused that trauma, right? Like I'm triggered by this because I was raped in my childhood, so now I can't have normal intimacy with adult women or men or, that makes sense, right? But then if you were using a project or something like paranormal happened to you and they wiped your memory, you could just like freak out driving, because like XYZ happened and you don't even understand where it's coming from. So I think the first thing to do is to visit somebody that can like really go through your memories with you, like a hypnotist or like a QHHT practitioner, and figure out exactly what it is that you're even responding to in the environment, right? Because that's going to give you some agency over your reactions, because you're going to be able to consciously come in with some mindfulness after practicing some meditation, some basic mindfulness techniques, and kind of reframe this. Like I'm safe now, and what I'm reacting to is actually XYZ that happened in my past. And from there,
yes,
yeah,
you just said, yep.
Yeah, you can obviously to handle trauma itself, I would say that it's the same way that you could handle any other type of trauma. So EMDR would be a good thing to explore if you have access to a therapist that could do that. Somatic technique.
And what is it?
EMDR. So it's the most effective form of trauma therapy on the mainstream market. And in my degree for trauma therapy, I've done some research on it. It's basically rapid eye movement therapy. Your therapist will make you focus on their finger, and just through a certain blinking pattern and other things, it can pull back memories from your past and help you rework them or rewire your brain. It's somatic more so than like cognitive, and it's very, very effective, and it doesn't take that long to heal from whatever it is that you were going through. Actually, it's like only a couple months of doing this with a therapist, and you should be pretty much back to your baseline.
Do you want to talk? I don't mean to interrupt you, and thank you, because everything you just said I know is super helpful, and thank you for sharing that. And I've never done rapid eye
EMDR, yes.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that. I've heard.
I have a book on it. I need to read it. But I would like to do it.
You're becoming a therapist, so you're going to. So you want to share about what you were going to school for and what you're preparing, the type of career that or business that you want to create for yourself in order to help others that through their experiences and trauma and so forth. I mean, I would love.
Sure. So I'm becoming a trauma therapist. So I'm just doing an MSW, which is a Master's of Social Work. So just your basics, learning how to diagnose people with mental illnesses, abnormal psych, all the stuff that you learn in social work, which is a bunch of BS about organizations and nonprofits and all the paperwork and stuff like that. But I also have a trauma certificate, so I'm learning mostly CBT, which is not the most helpful. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a form of trauma therapy, but it's not the most effective. And the place I'm doing my internship at teaches all the other kinds as well, and is actually more focused on those. So I'm hoping that they're gonna kind of school me in some of these other more effective areas too, because that would be more where my focus would be. But because of my own unique background in the projects, I'm hoping, I'm not sure where I'm going to end up. I'd like to do a private practice, but I would like to work with people actually who have been part of these government projects. Because obviously, if you go to a normal therapist and you talk about this, I think I know one other therapist that specializes in what I'd like to specialize in with the My Labs and the projects and all that. And that's Eve Lorgan. If you haven't looked into her, she's an amazing, amazing resource.
Evie Lorgan?
Yeah, she's incredible.
Yeah,
I've seen every single one of her interviews.
I actually spoke with her years ago.
Did you?
Yeah. And reptilian love bite scenario.
Yeah, that's what she's famous for, coining. But she also works with My Labs and all that stuff. And so, what I'd like to go into ultimately is trauma therapy, specifically for people that have been part of these projects. Because if you go to a normal therapist, they're going to tell you that you need to be on like 5 different medications and maybe the psych ward, Exactly. If you say that you met a reptilian. So that's what I'd like to focus on. And then I'm also doing holistic health practitioner, because I know that, my parents are doctors. I've seen the medical system, the best of it. And my parents believed in the pharmaceutical industry. And I've just kind of seen where that takes us ultimately. And I'm not impressed, to say the least. And, having come from 2 doctors that taught at Harvard, taught medicine at Harvard, dad's a cardiologist, mom's a surgical oncologist. And my mom's brilliant. She's got like a 160 IQ. My dad's got like a 145 IQ. But my dad's
obviously that's been passed down to you because you're pretty.
Yeah. And that's another question that I have to answer. But yeah, I've seen the best of that world, and I'm just really not impressed. I feel like even the best of the best doctors do not know how to take care of their bodies, and it's sad, like, that they treat their bodies like a machine instead of like realizing that nature has all these answers. Mm-hmm. And you can go into the doctrine of signatures and all this other stuff that I downloaded before I even knew what it was into my consciousness, and then I found it again just researching online. But yeah, nature has everything that it needs to heal us, and so tuning into that and just tuning into like how to take care of your body is super important, because you can go through your childhood, work through all these Black Project experiences, and do all that work, but you're still going to find yourself upset and unhealthy if you don't take care of things like parasites or how to properly nurture your vehicle, and keep it healthy, especially given the 100,000 pollutants that we're exposed to every single day, due to like everything that's being sprayed on us and all the other industrial, evil,
Right.
you know, that we're so yeah. So those are my two focuses. But I think there was like a question about how these things get passed on.
Yes.
I think it's just like any other thing. I mean, I would say genetically, you know, if your forefathers are part of this, we know that epigenetics is how genes get turned on or off. So like throughout your life, your genes aren't actually static. I mean, I think that's what people who are uneducated think. Like you're born with a set of genes, and then it just stays that way and doesn't change throughout your life, right? But what actually happens is the choices that you make. So let's say that you choose to exercise every day, and you choose to watch uplifting things, and you're doing the 432 hertz meditations, and you're you're really tapped in, and that's going to alter your genetic code significantly versus if you were to go out and sell crystal meth and like become involved in gangs and like had a lot of traumatic exposures. Like your genes are actually going to turn on or off according to what you choose to experience or what you do experience during your life.
Lipton is a fantastic
Yeah.
teacher about that, and
it's a scientific fact. This is not woo woo. This is everybody that studies science knows it.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's how anything happens. Like, how do you think a rabbit knows how to run away from like a bear, in the woods? Like, it does that because its ancestors were attacked by a bear, and now, or they watched one of their other rabbit friends get attacked by a bear, and now that's in their genetic code, so they know to run away from it. And that's just evolution. That that's how we know what to avoid or what's good for us, etc. So yeah, I mean, if your forefathers had psychic abilities, or if they spent a lot of time studying psychic phenomena and they turned those on, because 98% of our DNA is turned off right now, and when it's turned back on, you get access to greater abilities. So if your ancestors had around and they either had those abilities or they did a lot of work to activate them, then that can get passed on to you, just by nature of the way that any other gene would. So that's what
or you can go through what I went through and having a full-blown Kundalini activation.
That also, yes.
In your divine gifts and creating out of thought and manifesting and able to, and then you get targeted and they come after you.
Yeah, absolutely. They know. They have like some technology to know when that activates.
Oh, they do. There's a sound and color. There's a frequency that gets out into the, and
I've seen them beaming things in my third eye when that happened to me, actually. Like I was outside and I was looking at the moon, and I had one of those, and I saw a reptilian beaming something at my third eye from the moon. It was very weird.
That's crazy.
I thought I was just, I was like, I must be.
No, you're not. It's real happening, and it's unfortunate. And I've dealt with, Yeah. Okay, so where can we're gonna start wrapping this up? We have about 7 minutes left. Is there, or no? It's 22. Yeah, we have about 7-8 minutes left. Is there anything any final things that you might want to share with the audience for people that will be listening to the interview or the video, and also where people can find you, and anything else that you feel called to share with us, Phoenix?
Well, let me think. Well, you can find me on Facebook. I don't really have very much social media. I used to have a TikTok presence that was pretty big, but they shadow banned me. So I went from getting like 15,000 views on all my TikToks when I was dancing to now I posted some government stuff. So I get like less than 100 on all of them. But I'm Darth.Vaderus on TikTok. And then on Facebook, I'm Phoenix H Lux. And I think you can add me if you have a mutual friend. Other than that, I'm like kind of low key as an individual. As far as any final words, I mean, it was so great to talk to you. This is a great first experience for me. I was nervous to share my story, but I'm glad that I did it. And I look forward to speaking to you again whenever you want to have me on, or
I would love to have you come back for sure. And we'll talk behind the scenes a little bit about what that will look like and what we put together. I thank you so much for coming on and taking a chance on yourself by sharing your story and trusting that you're in a safe place. And this platform is done. I hope I do my best to keep this platform where people feel safe and being able to share without judgment of any kind, right? We've all done things, good, bad, right, wrong, whatever. And the goal is to really hold space for other people, like the things that you were sharing, being able to especially what you just shared about all the different ways and modalities that they can seek to get help. I think what you shared was fantastic.
Yeah, that's another thing that people should look into is like massaging techniques. Man, I'm blanking on the name of this, but this works really well. Like a lot of your trauma is stored in your tissue. So if you can find a somatic therapist that works on your tissue, do you know what I'm talking about? That works really well as well. Like,
yeah, I have, but I work in a holistic office, and my friend, I'll give her a little shout out, Zaira, who owns the office. She's been doing massage therapy for over 20 years. She's amazing. And I work with her part-time there. And I actually wanted to go to school to become a somatic trauma therapist. But I don't know, like I so many different things out here that I have so much interest in, and I'm just taking one thing at a time. And
yeah, it's tough, huh? There's so much. Yeah, you can't master it all. You can only master it.
Yeah, and to get proper somatic trauma therapy training takes a couple years. It's not
the more you dedicate yourself to something, the more proficient you're doing. Yeah.
So, but I trust that I'm on the right path, and I trust so are you. I think what you're doing is amazing. I admire you. Your discipline is fantastic, and going to school and learning and getting a higher education so that you can position yourself to be in a place to help other people. And you're already doing it, Phoenix. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, definitely. And I will be in touch to have you come back, and we'll work that out. Guys, everybody, thank you. Those that tune in to have a listen to this video. I think it's definitely worth having a listen, and you'll learn a whole lot. And anyways, thank you for coming on, Phoenix. I'm not going to keep you any longer, and I'll be in touch soon. You have
sounds good. Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.